It's the roaring 20s, and people are dancing to the upbeat rhythms of jazz music as the world is finally at peace after the end of World War I. Economies around the world are booming, and it seems like the good times will never end. But just as things seemed too good to be true, disaster struck, and everything came crashing down. In the fall of 1929, the world was hit with a catastrophic event that changed the course of history: the Great Depression. With its roots in the United States, the effects of the Great Depression quickly spread to other parts of the world. Banks fail, businesses close, and people lose their jobs and homes. The world is thrown into chaos, and the future looks uncertain. Among all of this, there was one nation that managed to defy the odds and stay strong: the Soviet Union. They survived the storm of the Great Depression and rose as a world superpower. But as we'll see, their strength won't last forever. The Soviet Union would eventually crumble almost overnight, and the impact would be felt around the world. What led to their downfall? How could a nation that once seemed invincible fall so quickly? Join me on a journey through the rise and fall of the Soviet Union's economy and discover the lessons we can learn from their story. As Western Europe progressed, Eastern Europe struggled to keep up. In the West, people had owned land for generations, but in Russia, land ownership was just a dream. Until the late 1600s, every field belonged to the Tsar, and even when private ownership became finally possible, it was only the upper class who got it, leaving the peasants with nothing. It wasn't until the 1830s that Russia got its first legal system, and it took another 30 years just to establish their first law courts. As factories and steam engines revolutionized the West, Russia remained frozen in time. Just 150 years ago, the average Russian had zero legal rights, no voice, nothing. The Tsar, terrified that the changes of the Industrial Revolution would take away his power, did everything he could to block it from reaching his empire. And so by the late 1800s, Russia, the largest country in the world, had only one railway line. The problems were stacking up fast, turning the country into a ticking time bomb. Everyone knew it was just a matter of time before everything exploded. And every day, the streets filled with desperate cries for bread, peace, and land. The fact that Tsar's wife, Alexandra, was German by birth didn't help. Many believed she was a traitor, secretly passing military secrets to the enemy. The people began to see not just a weak leader, but a corrupt, compromised ruler surrounded by spies. Finally, with the weight of the world pressing down on him, Tsar Nicholas II gave up the throne. That's when a young man named Vladimir Lenin stepped into the spotlight. Coming from a traditional family of government workers, his father had a respected position in the Tsar's administration, giving the family higher social status. Lenin's future seemed bright. As a child, he was a good-natured boy. He does well in school, earning top marks and praise from his teachers. His intelligence and discipline even earned him a place at the prestigious Kazan University to study law. Everyone expected him to go far, perhaps even following in his father's footsteps. But beneath the surface, Lenin's life was full of family troubles. His older brother, who tried to assassinate Tsar Alexander III, was executed, while his sister also spent time in jail for political activities. Despite all this, Lenin stayed focused on his studies. Well, at least until he joined the protest movements. He caught the attention of the police, and they quickly discovered who his brother was. Suddenly, the doors of opportunity slammed shut. Lenin was kicked out of the university and later deported from Russia. This harsh punishment lit a fire in Lenin, one that burned with anger and hatred. He felt betrayed. His family had been unfairly judged for his brother's actions, and now he was paying the price for it. He felt that the system had turned against him. As the years passed, that anger grew into an obsession. He began to dream of a world where the current order no longer existed. While travelling across Europe, Lenin watched as protests in Russia grew larger, and he knew his moment was coming. From Switzerland, he sent messages to his fellow revolutionaries, warning them not to trust the provisional government and not to make deals with the old order. But Lenin was done waiting. He returned to Russia, and with his arrival, faced with the massive failure of his policies, Lenin didn't hesitate. he turned to the one tool he knew best: extreme violence. He proposed mass executions to silence anyone who disagreed. Isaac Steinberg, a former Minister of Justice, remembered a moment when Lenin suggested a law allowing executions without trials. Steinberg opposed it, calling it a cruel threat that could spark widespread terror. Frustrated, he told Lenin,
"Why do we even have a Ministry of Justice? We should just call it the Ministry of Social Extermination and be honest about it."
To his surprise, Lenin's face suddenly brightened and he replied,
"Well, that's exactly what it should be. But we can't say that out loud."
Stalin feared for his life constantly. His paranoia was so big that he rarely travelled, always afraid that somewhere, someone was plotting against him. Because of that, he had no idea what was really going on in the country. Instead, government officials carefully prepared staged films to show the perfect version of Soviet life. In these scenes, farmers were sitting behind tables stacked with ducks and other fancy foods, smiling and laughing as if everything was great. Stalin watched these fantasies and believed every bit of it. In 1957, they shocked the world by launching Sputnik, the first artificial satellite into space. It was a bold message that said Soviet missile technology had advanced to the point where they could reach across the ocean, potentially threatening the United States with long-range nuclear missiles. They were trying to spread their influence in third world countries, hoping to weaken the West's ties with their former colonies. But this ambitious plan became really expensive. The Soviet Union was offering support and loans that were never paid back. When oil prices dropped massively in the mid-1980s, it was like another heavy blow to an already struggling economy, cutting off a key source of income. But even then, they kept pouring more money into the military. The Soviet Union was on the verge of collapse,